My gosh, I don't remember the last time I seen such an info dump of a segment in an anime. Episode 6 of KOWLOON Generic Romance, like half the episode is literally just a wall of text, just literally laying out all the science and mumbo jumbo they possibly feel is going on with KOWLOON itself. Which, yes, does pretty much go with my major theory that I had for the entire series, is this concept of this reality that's been created. This second fake KOWLOON has sort of been fabricated from nothing. And it sort of comes down to a theory of this feng shui. This idea of having the generic Terra like right above KOWLOON has sort of created some sort of anomaly. That this stuff is being created from nothing. But also getting the idea of sort of viewing the people that are within KOWLOON itself, or at least this existence of KOWLOON, is sort of like these pseudo clones. They're Zirconians. This is what they were talking about when they were talking about Zirconians. It's the people that are within this sort of created reality. Now, they said they. That's the big troubling part, is really understanding what created this. And again, Yolong believes that it's created from this sort of distortion in reality and all this desire for something there, which would probably be to the nostalgia, the idea that people want KOWLOON to exist, and thus having this weird structure above it that we don't know how it's really kind of created thus far, is sort of creating that anomaly. But really interesting. It's still very interesting, even though it kind of plays into what I kind of suspected and didn't really kind of rug pull me. It's still begging so many questions. It's begging so many questions. But yes, I actually really enjoyed the episode, despite it being that much stuff at the very end there. It was very interesting to see in the manga, the doctor was involved in that conversation between Miyuki and Yulong. I'm very curious why the anime adaptation decided to pull him out of the situation. Because what kind of comes from that is that Wong himself does seem like he's somebody that is sort of conflicted about the existence of KOWLOON itself. He says something to the effect in the manga as they kind of go through this explanation. At some point, it gets in the idea of the revenge and how Wong doesn't want Miyuki to be kind of driven by revenge. There's a lot of people in this episode that don't want him to be driven. Gwen does not want him to be driven by revenge. Everybody doesn't want him to be driven by revenge. But yes, Wong fully knows that Miyuki wants to do this whole thing with his son. Wong knows that Miyuki's whole purpose, his revenge plot, is to create a clone of his father's son, but not include the memories. That way, when the father sees this son and gets really excited, like, it's my son, he's back, we made it, we cloned him, we restructured him using his memories from the generic Terra, which seems to be that's the whole driving force for that. But then suddenly, the kid doesn't have memories, and it's going to shatter him. It's going to shatter him that he sees it and it looks perfect, he acts like him, but he doesn't have any semblance of him in the core. And that's what he wants. Wong knows that. And Wong's trying to stop him. Don't be driven by hatred. Don't be driven by this revenge. Because what comes after it? Wong's trying to push onto Miyuki the idea of, you have something to give in this world. You don't have to be driven by this. Whereas Miyuki is sort of conflicted by what he is. He's not neither male nor female. He can't do one thing or the other. He doesn't really have an existence. He doesn't feel like he has a purpose. And Wong's saying, no, you could still give your heart. You have this thing deep inside you that somebody wants, which we obviously see as Gwen. Gwen really likes Miyuki. You have something to give. You don't live by that. It seems to indicate he blames his father for how his body is, that his body is not neither male or female. And he doesn't even have the ability to create offspring. That it sort of does make me believe that this hatred is kind of built by that. For my entire life, I've never felt anything absolute about myself. My body can't be called completely male or female. I can't leave behind offspring, and my life was stolen from me by Habinuma, even my hometown of KOWLOON. There's a lot in here that it seems to indicate that Miyuki's father did something to him, and that's driven him to want this revenge. Again, I think it's probably something to do with the original KOWLOON, the KOWLOON that he was from, and possibly something happening to Miyuki. There's a side of me that almost thinks that he's a creation from his mother and their son. Let's say their mother and his father's son, whatever. There's a lot of anger here, and it seems like a lot to do with something that his father did to him. He sort of sees himself as sort of a purposeless being that was created by his father that he hates. So, but additionally, the other interesting thing that I kind of noticed from, Wong being involved in this conversation was, again, at some point they mentioned, hey, I think it was Yulong, was asking Wong, why doesn't he go see the generic Terra? You should go check it out. You should go see if you can see it. And Wong doesn't want to do that. He says he has an interest, but he doesn't want to know. If he's seen it, he'd fear that he'd blame himself anew. That's the curious statement there. What is he blaming himself for? It seems like Miyuki responds saying, if it's about my mother, you don't have to have that guilt. That guilt is unfounded. She always had a weak constitution. You're not to blame at all. So him sort of playing off what he says there and talking about the mother, it sort of leads me to believe that the mother was involved in some sort of accident in KOWLOON. And it kind of makes me wonder if possibly something happened in KOWLOON which took the mother and essentially took the son. And Miyuki blaming his father for that whole situation, it does make me wonder if it's something to do with KOWLOON is attached to the father. That the father caused something in KOWLOON, and this is all kind of dredged up together. Because yes, another little additional, I don't think I've seen it in the anime, an additional line that was cut from the manga to the anime adaptation is Miyuki confirming that yes, he loved KOWLOON. He is from there. I mean, it gives you a sense there with what Yulong says at the very end, where he says to Miyuki, you know, be careful. Well, he doesn't say it to Miyuki. He mumbles it as Miyuki's leaving. Be careful. Don't get swept up in KOWLOON. It does seem like there is an attachment that Miyuki has to KOWLOON, which does sort of kind of support the mindset of what exactly is causing people to actually see KOWLOON. Because as we kind of got into quite a bit in this episode, Yulong's perspective here, of what they're trying to figure out, is what causes people to see it or not to see it. Because that seems to be the troubling and confusing thing about the whole situation. They've established this thing is some sort of weird creation, that it has just kind of spawned from this imbalance in emotions and whatnot, this desire for nostalgia, whatever it is. But it seems like there's one hitch to here is why can some see it and some can't? I was really going with a theory that it had to be people that were from there, people that have attachments there. But they have one big problem with that whole situation is that Yome was never there before. They kind of put she was, you know, back here. She was, you know, an actress. She was very sheltered. She wouldn't even know about KOWLOON. Their assumption that she would never even know about that place, yet she can see it. It sort of comes to the conclusion that it's people that that desire for it, people that have some sort of connection to it, something that drives them to want to see it will allow them to see it. But that's the oddity there because Yulong really wants to see it. Yulong really badly wants to see it. I think it's going to come down to people that are stuck in one spot. I think it's going to be people that are stuck to not able to move forward. It's going to be one of those kind of things. Some people want to move forward. Some people are stuck in one spot. And I think that's what's going to ultimately lead into Kujidai, Reiko's character herself, having a conflict in the future. Because it does seem like she wants to move forward because for the sake of Kudo. Obviously, Kudo doesn't want her to, as we see with this episode. But it does feel like she wants to get away from him. But I think deep down in her heart, she doesn't. So she's still stuck there. But I think everybody that has a desire to kind of be stuck in one place is going to be drawn to there. But again, Yome is still the oddity. But that would also kind of lead into, yes, maybe Yulong himself doesn't have that desire. Maybe he's always forward thinking. Miyuki's stuck in one spot. He's stuck in revenge. Yulong doesn't have that problem. Gwyn, he's stuck in one place. He's stuck there with his whole memories about Kudo and what happened back there. And yes, Miyuki. I don't know. It's a thought process. It's a thought process there, which does kind of lead me to kind of wonder what's the case with Zohei. Which again, that sort of brings me back to that statement that she made to Reiko a while back when they were looking at apartments. Reiko was asking, why are you stuck here? Why don't you go somewhere else? Why don't you go to Hong Kong? You can go anywhere. Why KOWLOON? And she said something to the effect that she will never decide to leave again or something like that. Like at some point in the past, she made a decision to leave and something happened. And my theory back there was that maybe possibly KOWLOON stopped her from leaving. Something bad happened, which yes, makes me very terrified about what's coming next. I think the tower that exploded, I think, was where Zohei was actually living. So I'm like, please don't have Zohei, you know, have something happen with her because she was deciding to leave again. It was interesting because there was a skip segment that was around Kujidai B and Gwyn, which we did get to see the whole segment where they were, you know, there together, and we had this little moment where, yeah, they were talking about the book, and again, how Reiko doesn't like to move forward. Again, there's so much emphasis on how not moving forward. Again, that's that whole nostalgia thing. Doesn't want KOWLOON to change. Everything has to stay the same. But she said something to the effect that she doesn't want to continue the book because she doesn't want to the end. Which again, does go against my theory that she read part of the book, which she still can. And that's why the book itself is incomplete that they found in the library. But she doesn't want to read it because she doesn't want to know if it gets bad. She likes where it's at. It's nice where it's at. If I read more, I might be disappointed. I like where I'm at. I'm never moving forward. I'm never continuing, and I'm never going away. That whole thing there. But interestingly enough, they skipped the segment right after this where we did get to see where Kudo talked to Gwyn about proposing to Kujidai B. And what's interesting about this scene is that emphasis there where Kudo feels that Kujidai has nothing left once KOWLOON goes away. Because they're talking about how KOWLOON itself is going to go away. And so he decides that he's going to, confess to her, propose to her, to give her something greater than KOWLOON, a greater KOWLOON, which, yes, we've kind of established that KOWLOON is the meaning of nostalgia, which is love. So I'm assuming that's where he's getting that from. The better KOWLOON or whatever, I think he's meaning a better love. So with KOWLOON going away and Kuji-dai not wanting to go anywhere or saying anything that she wants to do and that she's stuck in one place, he was trying to give her an out. Fall in love with me, basically. Let's go off to Japan or whatever. Which I wonder if that stuff will end up kind of leading into what Kudo believes that he did to hurt Reiko. But yeah, kind of wrapping up the whole stuff around the father and Miyuki and the whole conversation about the Zirconians and stuff. Yeah, it does feel like there's a lot here that Miyuki is trying to build up into some sort of revenge plot. And again, I think that has to do with the father having done something with KOWLOON, and it seems like Miyuki was from KOWLOON, and this is all a ploy in order to get back at him. But I do kind of wonder if the father's going to be directly involved with the creation of this new KOWLOON. But it seems like his father's really kind of questioning about the update on the Gene Terra and the Zirconian project. It doesn't really feel like he's directly involved. So this could be something where Miyuki is just sort of, building into it based on that. But it was interesting to actually get a little bit clarification on exactly what the generic Terra was, because my original theory that I had was that this whole story was in the generic Terra. Like, this is sort of a virtual world that, Hajime Kudo is uploaded into, and everything is built around that. But it seemed like the generic Terra is just causing this. The generic Terra is just a memory capsule. It's just keeping people's memories, and then they can use this service to rebuild that memory. It's all for that sake. But yes, it seems like a lot of this is really just, they built this whole thing just to essentially store this kid's memories. Like, they built this entire Gene Terra just to store this kid's memories. But again, I do believe a lot of that stuff is sort of bleeding out there. If all these individuals, Kuji-dai, Kudo, Gwyn, all of them, if they've all uploaded their data to this generic Terra, and then this weird warping happens underneath it, yeah, I can see a lot of the memories kind of just feeding down into it. And that would kind of explain why some individuals don't really have memories past that. I never thought about that. There's 2 individuals that we've gotten to so far that have no memories past 6 months ago. And that's Kuji-dai Reiko and Yome. And those could be the one oddities where there's a reality of them created underneath the generic Terra, but there's no memories in the generic Terra to feed it. So thus, it does make sense why somebody like Hajime Kudo and Gwyn and all these individuals, they actually have those memories. They have stuff beyond those 6 months because that's stored in the generic Terra. I never actually thought about that. It's actually very interesting. But yeah, anything else from that whole segment? Yulong's apparently been hired by Miyuki to look into the generic Terra itself. He wants more information about KOWLOON, so they're kind of both working their own project there, trying to figure out, again, the Zirconians that are in the KOWLOON area, specifically getting into the idea of dead individuals being in this new created KOWLOON, which is interesting as well, which again, doesn't really shock me. They've already talked about Kuji-dai Reiko and how she's there. Outside of all that stuff, yeah, we had Yome meet Gwyn. He just totally blurted out, and she's totally fangirling over him. And yeah, we have this little meeting with Kuji-dai and Gwyn, which, yeah, kind of, again, confirms a lot of stuff here. He's just kind of mentioning to her the fact that she is not the real one. He doesn't know, like right here, he's confirming he doesn't know what Kuji-dai is. Because I think she even mentioned the idea of if she's a clone. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Again, I think that's because we're making a distinction here between like your normal clones created and the Zirconians, which seemingly are created by this weird distortion underneath the generic Terra. But yes, I do like that aspect there, kind of piggybacking off of what they've mentioned before about, Gwyn and his fears of a doppelganger. They're sort of giving the same concept here where Kuji-dai herself, because it seems like she's following the footsteps of Kuji-dai B so much, if she knows about how she dies, that could lead her into doing the same thing. But I kind of wish that Gwyn at least told Yome what happened there. I was hoping for at least a little closure with that whole situation. But again, right here, it seems like Yome is confirming that she doesn't know anything beyond 6 months. Which that's an oddity because we did technically see her where she was thinking about her life before she was in KOWLOON, which I guess could still be 6 months back, but it could be strictly just memories of KOWLOON itself back 6 months. Either way, I do believe that Yome is just really a kind of an anomaly in this entire existence. But I do like the idea that she did bring up the absolute self again, which technically in the manga, it did sort of a reverse here. They kind of jumble things up a little bit here. The concept of what they're saying here is the same in the manga and this. It's just who's saying what is sort of kind of shifted around. But I do like how they kind of portrayed this and how Yome herself does acknowledge that she was falling into her old self. And it was Kuji-dai herself that fixed her. Because he's asking if there's anything that weird that happened. Yeah, I became my old self. What happened? Well, Kujidai saved me. She made me go back. Now, I kind of felt like there was an aspect here that sort of indicates that Reiko is able to sort of control what happens in this reality. But I do kind of feel that it could just be the fact that because she spoke up, it gave Yome the encouragement to switch back. Not necessarily that Reiko Kujidai is able to control Yome. The reason why I bring this up and why it's significant is because previously we've given this indication that Kudo can control KOWLOON. Because of his moments of anxiety, he was creating earthquakes. Now, that could have just been a misdirection. Like, they want us to believe that he's creating the earthquakes, but he's not actually. But I did feel like that was the indication there, and it almost made me believe in this moment that it's indicating that Kujidai can actually control KOWLOON itself too. But yeah, it really does kind of emphasize here with Yome, with Gwen, the idea of not lying to yourself. Lying to yourself too much makes yourself a fake self. And this is obviously going to be building into Gwen and his relationship that's going on with Miyuki. The idea of Miyuki himself sort of creating that as well. Not wanting to have that absolute self that Yome has sort of found. But yeah, that all leads into the last scene where we have Kujidai eating the noodles. Cute little scene there, her eating the noodles and not giving up. Again, she's just being her own self. I like how much Reiko's character has sort of pushed away from being Kujidai being. But yeah, eating the cup noodles, not giving up on it, going out there and getting some more cup of noodles. And yeah, talking about the idea of wanting to go out into the world and see other foods, see other things. And even, yeah, the idea of even if I like somewhere, actually moving there. Even kind of bringing up the idea of bringing Yome with her. But yes, Kudo, not really liking that. No, never leave me, always stay here. And again, I kind of wonder if he believes that. I'm still convinced that Kudo is in the middle of this generic Terra. He is the core of it. And I do believe that he understands that if Kujidai is in fact, this current Kujidai, if she's in fact a Zirconian, if she's created by this reality, her leaving is going to erase her. And I believe that he knows that. And so he doesn't want her to leave the existence. Even though he doesn't want to make a bond with her and connect with her, he's still afraid of her disappearing, which is interesting. But yes, this all leads into the explosion. And again, I think that's where Xiaohei was at. So I hope nothing bad happened to her. But it could be another point where because of Kudo being sort of afraid of something, it's causing that anxiety and causing something to happen. If the tower that she's at collapses, this could be another sign that because Kudo was so shocked by what Kujidai was saying and panicking for a minute there, he may have caused that destruction. He caused that earthquake, caused that building to collapse, which kind of sucks. Hopefully nothing happens to her because that would like really screw with his head. If she's even real, though, if she's even real. But I think that's everything. I think that's the entire episode. My gosh, I think I just kind of jumped around a lot. Hopefully my babbling on, I covered everything and this was somewhat coherent because it does feel like a lot of this stuff is sort of, again, very info dumpy and very kind of confusing to sort of put into perspective. And hopefully my theories here and confirming my theories kind of helped you guys out. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below, comment, let me know about the episode. Additionally, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, it links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. But until next time, y'all take care.